Good evening and welcome to the City of Roswell Mayor and City Council meeting of Monday, August the 11th, 2025. I am Mayor Kurt Wilson. I would like to introduce my colleagues and council members present. Councilmember Sarah Beeson, Councilmember Christine Hall, Councilmember and Pro Tem Lee Hills, Councilmember David Johnson, Councilmember William Mortland, and Councilmember Alan Sells. At this time, I'll now turn the meeting over to our City Administrator, Chief Administrative Officer, and City Administrator, Mr. Randy Knighton, to explain how the meeting is run. Mr. Knighton.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson, and good evening, everyone. In accordance with Section Chapter 3.70 of the City Code, the City Council shall hold regular public meetings. The purpose of City Council meetings are for the public to participate and speak on agenda items which constitute formal decisions by the elected body. These items can be found on the city website and can be accessed prior to the meeting. This is a public meeting, and some items do require a formal public hearing. A significant and important component of city council meetings are to hear directly from residents on these items listed on the agenda. And residents are at the top of the organizational chart of the City of Roswell. Therefore, it is imperative that Mayor and Council incorporate comments and questions from residents into their decision-making process. If you wish to speak on an agenda item, we ask that you complete a comment card and hand it to the city clerk. Speakers are called for each item in the order the cards are received, and if you have not at this point and you would like to speak on an agenda item, we certainly request that you provide those cards to the clerk at this time. We ask that everyone observe the principles of mutual respect and display the appropriate demeanor during the course of the meeting this evening, which is and should be reflective of this great community. With respect to the proceedings, the mayor is the presiding officer of the meeting and will ensure an orderly exchange of comments, questions, and discussion leading to decisions by the elected body. We ask that you silence any electronic devices at this time, and if it is necessary to have an independent conversation, we ask that you exit the rear doors to the vestibule area. We encourage everyone in attendance and those viewing in the streaming audience to visit the city website for information, news, events, and meetings. And we also encourage you to participate in the various activities listed on our calendar of events at roswell365.com. There are a number of events upcoming in the City of Roswell which promote community, physical activity, and leisure as we all make Roswell the #1 family community in America. Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton. I'm going to ask a little different than our normal protocol. I'm going to ask everyone to join me to stand up for a minute and join me in a moment of silence to honor former council member Marcella Zapata. Marcella's bride, widow, informed me this morning that Marcelo passed away on August the 1st in Argentina, surrounded by family and friends. And his daughter, Isabella, and his wife, Selena, both got to go down there and be part of the service, obviously. But I wanted to let the community know that we've lost Marcella, and I ask you to join me for just a moment of silence to honor the memory of Marcella and his service to our city. Thank you, everyone. God bless Marcelo. God bless Selena and Isabella. And at this time, I have the great pleasure of asking the Reverend Jennifer Adona, Senior Pastor of Northbrook United Methodist Church, to come forward for the invocation. Welcome, Jennifer. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. I want to thank you for the opportunity to pray with you this evening. It's a distinct privilege, not only because I pastor here in the community, but also I grew up here in Roswell and attended Roswell Elementary, Mimosa Elementary, and graduated from Roswell High School. So go Hornets. Let us pray. Almighty and gracious God, we come to you this evening with hearts full of gratitude. First of all, for who you are, for your mercy, your grace, and for your love for all the world. Thank you, Lord, for the privilege and benefits of living in this free land and in this beautiful city we are blessed to call home. We pray, Lord, for all the citizens of Roswell and for the needs of our vulnerable neighbors, for the lonely, the abused, the addicted, the hungry, the homeless, and the immigrant. We thank you for our first responders who serve and protect, and we ask that you would place a hedge of protection around them. Tonight, we especially pray for Marcelo's family, that you would comfort them in their grief and surround them with the presence of your Holy Spirit. We thank you, Lord, for our mayor and city council, for the gifts and graces they bring to their positions, and for their willingness to accept the challenging call of leadership. Give them patience and strength for their work, and wisdom and insight in their decision-making. We thank you, Lord, most of all, for your promise that you are always with us and that you will never forsake us. Help each of us, no matter the task, to be faithful to serve you and one another after the example of Jesus, and to always endeavor to obey his command, to love you with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and our neighbor as ourselves. For it's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Reverend Jennifer Andoni, Senior Pastor of Northbrook United Methodist Church, for being with us tonight and for your lovely invocation. At this time, I have the great pleasure of asking United States Army Major Pedro Fernandez to please come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Major Fernandez. I'm going to ask you to stay right there where you are for the first item under the Mayor's Report, which is a reading of the proclamation for the esteemed veteran of Roswell Award, and ask the council to please join me.
That's quick.
Ready? Proclamation, Office of the Mayor, Major Pedro Fernandez, esteemed veteran of Roswell. Whereas the city of Roswell is proud to honor and recognize the extraordinary individuals who have served in the armed forces of the United States and who continue to make lasting contributions to their communities through service and leadership. And whereas Major Pedro Fernandez began his distinguished military career by enlisting in the United States Navy at the age of 29, completing basic training at Naval Station Great Lakes in Illinois, where he also attended Navy Corpsman School. Whereas following his Navy service, Pedro Fernandez continued his dedication to military service by commissioning in the United States Army in 1997 as a second lieutenant and Army nurse assigned to the Combat Support Hospital, CSH, where he served as both assistant officer in charge and later officer in charge of the emergency room, as well as in the hospital's chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear section. Whereas Major Fernandez completed specialized training in trauma, combat care, flight nursing, and was selected for 2 medical missions in Central and South America in partnership with the Special Forces of the host nations. And whereas while deployed to Mosul, Iraq, Major Fernandez was attached to the 10th Mountain Division's dust-off team, providing critical emergency care as a flight nurse in combat conditions. And whereas following his exemplary service, and for his exemplary service. Major Fernandez received numerous honors, including the Army Commendation Medal, the Army Achievement Medal, the National Defense Medal twice, the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, the Iraq Campaign Medal, and 2 overseas training awards. And whereas upon returning from Iraq in 2009, Major Fernandez served with the Community-Based Warrior in Transition Unit, helping and supporting wounded and ill soldiers returning from combat deployments. Whereas Major Fernandez retired from the United States Army in August of 2014 with the rank of Major 04, having also earned a Bachelor of Science in Nursing while on active duty. Whereas in retirement, Major Fernandez continues to serve his community by volunteering with the Roswell Police Department and completing the Citizens Police Academy, while also dedicating time to caring for his family and grandchildren. And whereas the mayor and citizens of Roswell expressed their deepest appreciation and heartfelt respect for Major Pedro Fernandez's lifetime of service to our nation and to our city. Now, therefore, I, Kurt M. Wilson, Mayor of the City of Roswell, Georgia, do hereby name Major Pedro Fernandez, an esteemed veteran of Roswell, and call upon all our citizens to recognize his outstanding service to our country and to our community, and that there's no higher calling than those who've served in the United States Armed Forces. Congratulations, sir. Thank you, sir.
I would like to say thank you, not only for me, my brothers in arms. And thank you to my wife.
Amen. Amen. Very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Pedro Fernandez. Thank you, Major. Thank you, Major Fernandez. And please forgive me for saying Hernandez there in the end. I do, forgive me, just a boneheaded move. All right, next on the mayor's report is a proclamation for the esteemed Roswell Public Safety Employee Award to Police Officer Thomas C. Chandler, named Police Officer of the Year for 2024. Officer Chandler, come join us up here. Proclamation, Office of the Mayor. Roswell Police Officer Thomas C. Chandler. Whereas esteemed Roswell Public Safety Employee Roswell Police Officer Thomas Chandler has been named as Police Officer of the Year for 2024. And whereas Officer Chandler has been employed with the Roswell Police Department for 2 years and has served as a uniformed patrol officer for the past 2 years. And whereas Officer Chandler is one of the most proactive officers currently assigned to Uniform Patrol Division on A Squad. They here? Okay. Whereas Officer Chandler maintains a positive attitude, a willingness to seek out guidance from those he respects, and he does not hesitate to offer advice and support to his peers. Whereas Officer Chandler has been an informational leader and has maintained that role during his entire tenure here at Roswell. Whereas on August the 5th, 2024, Officer Chandler, along with a fellow officer, located a wrong-way driver on Georgia 400 heading northbound in the southbound lanes. Officer Chandler took swift and decisive action and took up a position of advantage using the front driver's side of his vehicle. Officer Chandler made intentional contact with the front driver's side of the wrong-way vehicle, rendering it immobile. And whereas the partnering officer's actions caused the driver to slow to a speed, which allowed Officer Chandler to make contact without sustaining serious bodily harm or inflicting said harm on the subject driver. And whereas the event was a fast-moving, high-risk situation, and there was an imminent threat posed by the wrong-way driver, the actions by both officers, at the risk of personal safety or well-being, not only saved lives, but were nothing short of courageous. Now, therefore, I, Kurt M. Wilson, Mayor of the City of Roswell, Georgia, do hereby recognize and honor Officer Thomas C. Chandler for his outstanding service and call upon all of our employees and citizens to recognize his outstanding service and unwavering commitment to the City of Roswell, Georgia. Congratulations, Officer Chandler. So I'm told that you're going to get the microphone, but I'm told that the media, one of our media hogs, our police chief, Jim Conroy, is coming up here, as well as Lene. But I'm going to give the microphone to you first.
I'm Thomas. I appreciate everything. I appreciate all the support, and it makes doing our jobs a lot easier at the end of the day. So thank you.
Well done. Nicely done. Nicely said. Police Chief Jim Conroy.
So Officer Chandler was named Officer of the Year for a number of reasons, and we felt it was very fitting for this is the first honoring of the public safety employee by the mayor and city council. So we felt fitting that our Officer of the Year should receive that first award. Officer Chandler is one of our best officers. He is very proactive, and I do want to highlight the incident that the mayor talked about, the wrong-way driver. A couple years ago, we had two innocent persons killed by a wrong-way driver on 400 here in the city of Roswell. There is no reasonable way to stop a wrong-way driver. Officer Chandler put his life at risk, had no idea how fast the driver was going, and crashed into the vehicle head-on. I know we wrote it, it sounded very law enforcement-esque, but yes, he crashed into the vehicle head-on, putting his life at risk just to save others. That is heroic. I don't want to end on a somber note, so we'll talk about a humorous note. So when Officer Chandler came to the police department, we do a physical agility test. Officer Chandler was wearing dress jeans, dress shoes, decided to drop his keys, and he had a tourniquet in his pocket. Smoked the course, got the record for the day, finished, and I was like, "You must be a Marine." And he said, "Yes, I am." And Thomas's father also is the deputy chief of the Sandy Springs Police Department. Unfortunately, he could not be here tonight, but we are so proud to have Thomas as part of our police department. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief. Lene, do you want to say anything?
Pretty sure Chief covered everything. I don't know what else I could possibly say other than I love him too. He's fantastic. Yeah.
That was a good word. Hey, where are you guys going? Get up here. Get a picture. It's picture time. We gotta get, yeah,
Right in front of you, though.
That's all right. That's okay. Come on in. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for the two heroes tonight. Yes. Yes, we are. Right? Actually, I got to come up there with you guys on this one. Thank you to those two fantastic Roswell human beings, Pedro and Thomas. Thank you, and to their families. Next on the mayor's report is the reappointment of Philip Mansell to the Historic Preservation Commission. Does council have any comments or questions? Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to approve this reappointment? Motion made by Councilmember David Johnson. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Alan Sells. All those in favor of the reappointment of Philip Mansell to the Historic Preservation Commission, please do so by raising your hands. Let the record show that the vote is 6-0 and passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Philip. Philip, please come forward to read the oath of office. I'll be right down there with you. Way ahead. Kara will have a copy of the oath, and the Bible will be on the podium. Mr. Mansell, please raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible as you read the oath. Let's see if I have it.
Go ahead and start.
No.
Oh, no. Okay.
He's ready. I like this. He's efficient.
Way ahead. Time saver. How you doing?
Doing great, Mayor Wilson. How are you, sir?
Good, sir. Good to see you, brother. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
All right, you know the oath? Good to go? All right, oath of office. State of Georgia, County of Fulton, City of Roswell. I, Philip Mansell,
I, Philip Mansell,
solemnly swear or affirm
solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Georgia,
and of the state of Georgia,
and that I will in all respects
and that I will in all respects
observe the provisions of the Charter
observe the provisions of the Charter
and ordinances of the City of Roswell,
and ordinances of the City of Roswell,
and I will well
and I will well
and truly perform
the
duties of the office
of
Roswell Historic Preservation Committee,
of Roswell Historic Preservation Committee,
and that I will, to the utmost of my skill
and I will, to the utmost of my skill
and ability,
and ability,
endeavor to promote
the
interest
interest
and property
and property
of said city
of said city
without fear,
favor,
or affection.
or affection.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mansell. All right, next on the mayor's report is the upcoming events in the city of Roswell. I'll turn it over to Pro Tem and Councilmember Lee Hills. Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. As always, I encourage you to go check out Roswell365.com and see what's happening, what's coming up in the city of Roswell. Additionally, if you have anything you'd like to advertise to our community and beyond, you can go register an account for free and put your information in there about a community event, a neighborhood event, a nonprofit or religious organization, anything that you'd like to have advertised on our calendar there. Please feel free to update that for yourself on a live. It'll go live as soon as you publish that, and with the expiration date, of course, being the end of your event, it'll take it right off of there as well. So there's zero maintenance and lots of exposure. We got a lot of things coming up in Roswell that I'm sure you don't want to miss. I can't believe we're heading into one of 3 of our Alive in Roswell's left. So come join us on Canton Street Thursday, October the 21st for, what did I say? October? No, that's the last one. August 21st from 5 until 8. And of course, you can stay later than that, but you meet old friends and make new friends. Then Saturday, August the 23rd, beginning at 8 a.m. from Riverside Park, the community is invited to walk together in memory of Officer Jeremy Labonte. This is the first annual Tunnels to Tower Memorial 5K Walk Run. The walk run is a time to remember his legacy, reflect on his service, and stand united in support and love. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation is a nonprofit organization that honors the sacrifices of first responders and military service members. Also, in recognition of Officer Jeremy Labonte, we will continue on Monday, August the 25th, at the Roswell Summit Building from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. with an interchange dedication for Jeremy Labonte. Look for more information on that in our social media posts, so we'll have some more details on where to park and how that will go. Of course, every Saturday is something people are really looking forward to now with our amazing Roswell Farmers Market and Artisans Market right here at City Hall. Starts at 8 a.m., wraps up about noon. Lots of congregating, lots of fun, lots of kids, lots of cool things that people make that are good for you and yummy, and just really a fun time to be there. It's the best in North Fulton, and if you don't believe it, check them out on Facebook and Instagram and read the comments of the patrons, the folks that have come out. It's pretty amazing. Fresh produce, handmade goods, and local charm. Again, check out Roswell365.com for other upcoming events. Tune into social media, which I try not to encourage that, but social media, you can get a lot of information about what's going on here in the city. Mayor, back to you.
Yes, Councilmember Hall. Thank you, Councilmember Lee Hills. Thank you, Pro Tem. Yes, ma'am, Councilmember Hall.
I would just like to add one more event that this past Friday. A big shout out to Chris Ward, who helped pick the bands that perform on the second Friday at Music on the Hill. We had Guardians of the Jukebox here this past Friday, and there was not a place to move on the backside of City Hall. I swear, I don't know how many people were there, but I think close to 1,000. It was a fantastic evening, and I just want to give a shout out to that team and to all the staff that make it happen. It is really, really a fun event. There's one more coming up in September, so we probably have time to remind folks of, but it's the second Friday in September, September 12th. And it's a tribute band to Billy Joel, Piano Man. So that should be a fun way to wrap up the season, but phenomenal event if you haven't attended yet.
Christine, since you're the only council member here that actually served with Marcelo, did you want to add any additional comments about Marcelo and his time?
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, I just can't. I served with Michael Palermo and Marcelo Zapata, and they were both incredible. And Marcelo was just somebody that was so passionate about the city, and that's why he stepped up with a young daughter and his being self-employed, running his business. Yet he gave time and really, really, really just his soul to the city and to make it better. And so it was a sad day when we learned that he had passed away.
Thank you, Christine. Well, speaking of spouses, I've been here for 3.5 years, and I could count, I think, on one or two fingers the amount of times I look out in the audience, the fellow residents, and I see my bride. So I'm a little scared tonight, more so than normal. So if you see me screwing up, just recognize I have the threat out here. This is very dangerous. My bride is there. Hey, bride. All right. That ends the regular report. Next is the consent agenda. So that ends the mayor's report. Next, the consent agenda. City Clerk Nancy Long, are there any Roswell residents who would like to speak on the consent agenda?
Mayor, there are no public speakers for this item.
Thanks so much, Nancy. Does council have any comments? Yes, ma'am? Did I hear? Does council have any comments or questions regarding the consent agenda? Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion made by Councilmember Johnson. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Beeson. All of you understand all three items on the consent agenda. A motion's been made by Councilmember Beeson, by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Beeson. All those in favor, please raise your hands. The consent agenda passing. Let the record show that the vote is 6-0 unanimous. Thank you very much. And the consent agenda passes as stated this evening. Next is the regular agenda. Item 1, City Clerk Nancy Long, would you please read the first item?
Thank you, Mayor. This is the financial report presented by Chief Financial Officer Bill Gottschall and Senior Vice President Jeff Leatherman.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Chief Financial Officer Bill Gottschall, would you, well, you're already sitting there, to come forward and read the financial report overview.
success. Sorry about that. Okay, so just to go over the second quarter financial results, we talked about this at committee about 2 weeks ago, where we made a more comprehensive presentation on other matters related to second quarter. But from an executive summary perspective, we are currently on track with all of our major financial department goals, and I will go through those goals, both accomplished and still in progress. On a year-to-date basis, our revenues and expenditures continue to perform ahead of plan, in that our revenues are above budget and our expenditures are below budget. Our financial performance through the second quarter continues to remain stable, and we continue to forecast stability in our financial results. I think an important point to know so far this year, one of our key goals was to build out a forecasting process, which we had started about 3 or 4 months ago, and continues to mature each successive month. On the goals, a couple of, they may not seem big, but they're actually fairly important functions to have gotten out of HR and into finance, the payroll functions. That has improved our internal service delivery. We are now tracking the performance of payroll, paychecks issued, timeliness, and so forth, and our error rate has dropped precipitously by putting accountants in charge of an accounting function, in essence. We have finalized the fiscal year 2024 year-end results. We expect to have the audit issued either by the end of this week or early next week, and the results are tracking favorably and in line with the 6-month presentation that I did back in March. We have been working on a quarterly reporting package. This is part of that process. So if you remember, we did our first quarter report at committee on the second Tuesday in April. We came to council with that same report in the first mayor council meeting in May. This is building up on that process. So we laid a lot of groundwork about what our goals were out of that main quarterly reporting. And now we're more focused on what we're achieving and what we plan to achieve going forward, because ultimately it's more important to know where we're going than only where we've been. So that's also part of the quarterly management review process, the QMRs as we like to call them internally. We've also been focused on a comprehensive grant strategy, and we've made a lot of progress towards focusing on grants that add value to the city and aren't necessarily expending staff and mayor and council resources chasing grants that do not fit with key priorities of the city. And then on the financial forecasting piece, I think this is maybe the area that we've put the most attention to in the finance function, is trying to figure out where we're going to land. Each month we do a 5+7, which is 5 actual, 7 forecasts, 6 actual, 6 forecasts. We continue to refine the forecasting process. We have just started this month building out a risk assessment of the forecast. So these numbers are projections, they're estimates, right? And estimates are inherently uncertain. And so around that uncertainty, it's important to understand the risk of those estimates not being correct, and how much you deviate, and build in some contingency for that risk. So as we mature in the financial forecasting process, we'll also mature in the risk assessment process, which should help us drive a more accurate number that we can disclose on a regular basis. Other areas that we continue to work on, we're finalizing the fiscal year 2026 budget. There'll be more to come for that later this month and next month. We continue to work on a monthly financial reporting package with our goal to post monthly reports and make them available to mayor and council as you see fit to work into the agenda. We are reviewing our procurement processes as well as our procurement strategy. In the procurement function, we should have the ability to achieve economies of scale through our purchase power. And we're looking at what those types of savings might be, and how do we get that implemented, and what types of policy adjustments and process adjustments we need to make internally to capitalize on that. We're also launching the next phase of the fleet strategy. As you may recall, you guys have set a policy to bring fleet under control, both from a cost perspective and number of vehicles perspective. So we're getting both of those. We made progress in both of those areas. We expect to continue to make further progress at the end of this year and into early 2026. And then in connection with the grant strategy, we hope to actually implement that grant strategy before the end of the year. Through the mayor's office, we've developed excellent relationships with other government legislators and agencies and other sources of potential funding for the city of Roswell. And we hope to continue to nurture that development with a lot of help from you on the council as well. I might add, Councilmember Hall and Councilmember Hills have both been instrumental in helping us nurture those relationships and guide me, the newcomer, through the process. So the area I'm most comfortable talking about are numbers. So on the revenue side, you'll see that so far, year to date, we are $1.6 million ahead of budget for revenue. That is primarily coming from property taxes of almost $1 million ahead of budget, and then on sales and use tax of about $500,000 ahead of budget. I just want to put a little footnote on property taxes. Because we changed fiscal year ends, our property taxes will be coming in the fourth quarter, not what used to be our fiscal second quarter. So we'll potentially show a deficit in certain months and certain year-to-date periods until that property tax starts to come in. But even on existing property tax and new home sales and otherwise, we have seen an unexpected increase in those numbers. Sales tax, the economy continues to run strong. We are under a revenue sharing arrangement with Fulton County and our various cities that comprise Fulton County. So this is a number, depending on budgeting or whatever, their numbers should be up above the board too, but ours are. We continue to watch this number closely. There is some concern in the marketplace that tariffs and other conditions could lead to sales and use taxes decreasing in the second half of the year. So in our forecasting, we've built some contingencies around this. This is the risk I was talking about. We've layered in some risk into our forecast in case we do not continue to have such a high performance in this area. The business tax difference is basically a rounding error. When you start to round to hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars, to lose 0.01 is mostly a rounding error. On the cost side, I think a large degree of credit needs to go to our operating leaders. On the salaries and benefits, they are working hard to manage the headcount and the payroll as they continue to achieve the objectives that have been laid out before them by you, the elected council, as well as their leaders, the senior vice presidents. And we've seen the same in the operating costs. They are only incurring expenditures when they need to. They're finding opportunities at savings. We in finance would love to take credit for this side of the ledger, but this is really at the operating units where they're managing the city and the business of the city. So net, year to date, we're at $2.8 million above budget. I'm not presenting the forecast right now because there's still some uncertainty baked into it, but that number is expected to decrease but remain positive by the end of the year. So we do expect to finish the year with a good surplus, not a great surplus, but still a good surplus. And we're hoping by the time we do the third quarter update, we'll have a much more solid number to provide to you guys for where we finish the year end. One of the things we also like to look at is our restricted and unrestricted cash balances. So I provided the last 3 quarters. The December 31, 2024 amounts are pending. They've been through audit adjustment. We're just waiting for the issuance of the opinion, so we feel these numbers are pretty solid. In March 31, they ticked up a little bit. The residual of sales taxes had come through. So there was a little uptick on those lingering sales taxes from the previous fourth quarter. We are down on unrestricted cash, but we are basically the same level on restricted cash. And because of the timing of collection of sales tax in the fourth quarter, we expect that number to return to the December 31 levels, if not higher, on the unrestricted cash component, thereby demonstrating our liquidity for unexpected events. So with that, glad to take any questions.
Well, yeah, just one clarification. Go back to the previous slide, just make sure. I think we got a little error there. Just show that the December 31st, 2024 restricted number is actually 211 million. I think the slide shows it 311 million.
Yes, sir.
Just FYI, just for the public's knowledge, it looks like that's a mistake on our part. The 293 number is right, the 82 is right, but 311, it should be 211, just FYI. Sorry to call you out.
Correct us before it
Well,
gets to the website.
well,
That's
exactly.
good auditing, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I
I
would want you on my team any day.
Exactly. Thank you. I'll join. I guess following the financial report, we're actually going to turn it over to our Senior Vice President, Jeff Leatherman, who's going to come forward and do an economic development update. Thank you so much, Chief Financial Officer Bill Godshall. Don't go far. I'm sure we'll need you. And Senior Vice President Jeff Leatherman, welcome to come do us the good service of providing economic development update. Welcome, sir.
Thank you again, sir. As the mayor had said, this is the economic development report, represents the quarter that we're currently in. This would be the finishing up of quarter two. Obviously, we're transitioning to quarter three. You'll see and hear in some of my comments as we get into some of our goals that we are moving along in the Hill Street project, and there'll still be some overlap between quarter two and some of the things that we've already accomplished here in the early part of quarter three as part of this report. I did want to take just a moment, and each time that we do talk about our economic development, not only strategy, but the work that we're doing, just to reposition or remind ourselves of where we started back in July of 2024 with kind of the initial launch of our economic development goals and objectives as we continue to move forward now well over a year past that time, looking to grow the economy, but also targeting a population growth from a growth perspective, balancing and diversifying our tax bases, really positioning Roswell as an attractive, effective brand that not only our community can continue to be excited about, but also developers in our community can be excited about, and a true leader in North Fulton. As we think about integration, integrating East and West Roswell, you heard about that in our TAD, which is our tax allocation district. I'll talk a little bit more about that moving forward, but that is our East-West connector TAD. How do we bring investment into the city of Roswell that connects our community together? We're optimizing or enhancing our infrastructure. I have just a note in red there about our 2045 growth plan, which is really focused on connecting our investment in the city of Roswell to our growth plan and to our nodes of our economic development strategy. And the innovation and alignment, establishing Roswell as an applied lab, R&D, innovation, continue to be goals that you'll see not only in our economic development plan, but also in our 2045 growth plan as a strategy moving forward for the city of Roswell. So that just level sets on where we've been, the planning effort, but also the execution of our various goals and objectives as the economic development team. And as I talk about the team, this truly is a team sport. We meet on economic development strategy once a week, not just on Tuesdays, but also on Thursdays, really focused in on how are we bringing the entire city behind our commitment to economic development and growth in our community. And it's responsible growth. It's protecting our neighborhoods, but also then facilitating economic development in our major corridors and in our commercial areas. The Hill Street project, we'll talk quite a bit about that, but land development agreement and land transaction is happening now as we speak with a goal of October 15th, 2025 to finish up our development agreement. The Roswell Development Finance Program you've heard a lot about in the last couple of months as we've continued to work through that project and those programs and how we're financing hotel projects here in the city of Roswell and helping to support through that federal program. Our tax allocation district strategy, this is about using tax dollars to reinvest in our priority corridors and nodes within the city of Roswell. Fully integrating our comprehensive plan. This is the first time that we've taken that type of focus of integrating our comprehensive plan and our planning strategy with our economic development strategy, and then on top of that, integrating that with our investment in infrastructure. And economic development projects rely on the investment of infrastructure, whether that be road infrastructure, utility infrastructure with our partners at Department of Georgia Power. It also relies heavily on our stormwater infrastructure. All of that part of our economic development strategy, those disciplines are in the room as we're working on planning, and now we're forecasting that plan with our 2045 growth plan. Our preferred developer program, also called our white glove program, first out the gate with our PBS partners, seeing that development come full circle and getting ready to celebrate their grand opening here in September alongside of them, which is also very exciting. We're working on updating our incentives and policies, our project tracking systems, and then our economic development quarterly reporting and framework. And hopefully this conversation and this report back continues to improve each time that we provide it, both internally to our departments, but also externally, both to the council and also to our community, which is really important that our community knows what's going on. As we think about the tools and resources, in the next slide I'll spend a little bit of time talking about our specific land acquisition tools, but we have developed a number of tools over the course of the last really 3 years. Some of them have been available to us in code and haven't been activated. Some of them have been around for a bit and moderately used, but our Roswell Development Authority being one of those tools. How are we looking, not just with the Downtown Development Authority, but the Roswell Development Authority, which covers the entire boundary of the city? How are we leveraging that authority that's offered to us at the state level? The Tax Allocation District, the TAD boundaries. This is a concerted effort for investment in our corridors around Holcomb Bridge Road, East Roswell to West Roswell, also up north and south from essentially Holcomb Bridge Road north of Highway 9. How are we looking at those corridors from an investment perspective? How are we dedicating resources to them and leveraging the investment that we need alongside of our capital improvement partners with transportation and stormwater, as I mentioned earlier? The Roswell Public Financing Authority, the PFA, you'll hear that, a lot of conversations around that, facilitating our acquisition of the Sproul property and the other 25 acres, a way that we can leverage other authority offered to us at the state level to optimize the work that we're doing here in the city of Roswell. Those are the newly developed and implemented, in progress right now, as I said, tax allocation district policies, the Roswell Development Finance Program, which will be coming at the end of the month, additional development incentives, the 2045 comp plan, and then the impact fee assessment is underway, currently in progress. So we think about land acquisition, another tool that we've begun to develop. Land acquisition can be part of our toolbox. We have to use it purposefully and intentionally because we are leveraging the city's balance sheet for land acquisition when we decide to use it. And so this is the process in which we go about leveraging our opportunity to partner with developers in our community to facilitate economic development projects here in the city of Roswell. Two different models, and there's a couple of them, but kind of the buy, market, and sell model, we saw that in Southern Post. That was the opportunity to leverage the city's balance sheet, take out a loan, buy property, leverage our partnership with the DDA, and then turn that project back around, sell it to a developer. And what you see now is Southern Post, transferring a property that was probably generating in about the $20,000 to $30,000, maybe $40,000 in tax revenue for the city of Roswell before it went under redevelopment. And right now we're projecting anywhere from $160,000 to $230,000 worth of annual return on that investment to the city's tax benefit. Now it improves the quality of life and improves all kinds of things in for the city of Roswell. But that was an opportunity that the city took a number of years ago to leverage an acquisition and then turn that around for economic development purposes. The Hill Street example, which we're currently working through right now, allows us to buy, or we already have land that we currently own. Part of the transition of the police department is freeing up land across the street from us at Hill Street, looking at land lease options, and then participation in the future sale of a project if it were to go out into the open marketplace and a return on investment. Now, this allows the city some greater influence on projects, greater influence on the outcome of projects, creates ongoing revenue under a lease agreement, and creates one-time revenue during a market sale after a project is constructed, operated, and demonstrates its value to essentially investors. You're going to see on the next slides kind of what that looks like from a representation perspective. But I just wanted to be able to talk a little bit about that as we think about strategy. And it's important that as we start to understand the strategy, what are the challenges for the city of Roswell as it relates to property and land development and economic development in the city of Roswell? What you see here is kind of the traditional market. This is across most cities, across really the United States, is you have land cost in blue, you have redevelopment cost in kind of the orange color, and then a return on investment for a developer in green. And that's going to fluctuate with each project. The 10 scale that you see is really kind of like a 100-point scoring scale. So I want to be really careful. This is just for illustration purposes only to inform the discussion. We're not saying this is exactly what's happening with the developer. The developer is not getting $20 million in green or anything like that. This is just to show how do we talk about economic development and complex issues around land development in the city of Roswell and help it make sense to most people who may be watching or listening. But the reality is we have a high land cost. You see that in blue. We have high cost for redevelopment. Again, you see that in orange. And then you have a low cost for property ownerships for buy and sell owners. What that means is there's a lot of owners that currently own property here in the city of Roswell that have no cost. They have no debt on the land. They have no opportunity. So all they're doing is essentially generating revenue on that land, and they've got to make a decision. Are they willing to take that land offline for 2 or 3 or 4 years, potentially collect no revenue on that land and put it into a redevelopment scenario? That can be a very difficult ask of some people, especially when you look at the Roswell market. The challenge with the Roswell market that we have is we have a higher cost for land than most. We have about the same redevelopment cost as what you would see in North Fulton as our sister cities in Alpharetta, but the land cost becomes scarce because we have very little of it here in a thriving community. And that leaves higher risk. That leaves higher risk for the developer. At the very top, you can see the small green return on investment. They've got to make the calculation, are they willing to invest in Roswell, and are all of the stars going to line up? But as we talk about often in economic development, the money and the developers often get a vote. They always get a vote, I would say. And so we have to create a marketplace that is thriving in a way that the investment is willing to come to Roswell and invest with us. And so here's what that looks like for the city of Roswell as we start to transition and implement our economic development strategy. The red box there you have is the Roswell market that I just showed you. The Hill Street development is an example of what we're doing in market participation to free up land that the city owns and then create a return on investment for the city. In this case, we are providing land into the deal. We're creating an opportunity for the developer to generate revenue, but then we're also creating an opportunity for the city to have a return on that investment. That looks like a land lease. In the Hill Street case, we're looking at an opportunity for a sale at 10 or 15 or 20 years down the road, and the city will continue to participate in that deal moving forward. We're looking at the same opportunity for future economic development projects. And that opens up the investment opportunity for the city of Roswell. It opens up opportunities for developers to partner with us as we bring the balance sheet both on land and redevelopment opportunities into the city of Roswell. Before I transition into our SEER contract, I just want to stop there, ask for any questions. I know that we wanted to go through this, just talk a little bit about our land transaction policies, procedures, and the benefit to the city of Roswell to try to clear that up and a few questions. So I'll stop there for a moment. Any questions?
Do you want, I think, Jeff, let's just continue the presentation with your permission. Let's go, because I think you got the,
You got it?
yeah, you got one more ED process, and then you got some SEER SOWs.
Yep. So in the economic development process, we have the origination, deal structure, implementation, completion, and celebration. We have a number of projects that are in the origination process, which is the United Soccer League, Mansell Overlook, West Gateway, Chambray Hotel, Riverwalk Mixed Use, and the Town Center. In the deal structure, that means it's moved on to the second more, I would say, intentional development agreement stage, the Hill Street development, our tax allocation district, PBS Aerospace, and Summit Public Safety Center. All of those are moving through the deal structure and implementation process. I'm excited to say, as I mentioned earlier, that PBS will actually be moving into the celebration phase where we get to celebrate with PBS on their opening of their space out off of Mansell, which is very exciting. Accomplishments for Q2, the land exchange agreement under Hill Street, the townhome builder RFP, which has been awarded. You see kind of the next milestone. We did meet the milestone of the RFP selection by 8/1. That has been completed, alongside of the construction manager at risk for Hill Street, also has been completed here in the month of August. So we're very busy around the Hill Street project. The Roswell Development Finance Program is currently underway. We're looking to obtain City Council approval at the end of this month. That is going through our process with the RDA right now. So we think about the tax allocation district, we have the TAD policies have been drafted. The next milestones are continuing to work with the county and the school board on the implementation of TAD policies and also TAD investments across all 3 of our agencies. We think about the SEER World Service Agreement. This covers the scopes of work that we've entered into all the way up to Q2 of 2025, which is April through June. The new scopes of work since our last update are these 4. real estate negotiations on USL, the financial analysis around the stadium mixed-use development, our brand initiative, and the West Alley Hotel, which we're rebranding as the West Gateway Project. All of those projects are currently underway as part of our scope of work in Q2. This is a summary of the scopes of work that we've entered into dating back all the way to 2024. And I wanted to provide this summary information because the ones that I've highlighted in yellow will be dropping off of our report because those have expired, we have exhausted the scope, and we have transitioned the project into a new scope of work. West Alley Hotel, you'll see on there for scope of work number 6, is also at scope of work number 7 because we have changed our approach to that project, and so it is coming back under a different model. And so I just also wanted to point out the parking business model has been delivered, the USL site utilization plan has been delivered, as well as our economic development strategy land acquisition. One note about scope of work number 1 is you will see, you will see that those are going to come back on a quarterly basis so that we can pinpoint exactly the work that is happening quarter by quarter for SEER on our economic development strategy. This is a summary of the contract balance and the contract remaining, year 1 and then year 2, which is where we currently are. That takes us through April of 26. Just also wanted to note that as we're transitioning from our traditional fiscal year into our calendar year, we will be adjusting our contracts across the city and making adjustments to this contract as well to line them up with budgets so that we have clean dates on a quarterly basis, and it will be much easier for the community to track so that we're not dealing with calendar year dates versus fiscal year dates versus contract dates, and that'll be part of the cleanup that we do at the end of this calendar year. Looking forward, and you'll hear back from us on quarter 3, the selection of the townhome developer. Surprise, surprise, once again, I already said it. We hit our deadline of August, and we have selected our townhome developer as well as our construction manager at risk. The USL Entertainment District and site selection, our West Gateway project, the tax allocation district, and the Roswell Development Finance Program launch. All will be happening here in this next quarter, and really in the next probably month or 2, you'll be hearing more about those as well. And for there, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Senior Vice President Jeff Leatherman. Thank you, Chief Financial Officer Bill Godshell, for your reports. At this time, I'll ask City Clerk Nancy Long, are there any Roswell residents who'd like to speak on any of these items?
Mayor, there are no public speakers for this item.
Janet, do you want to speak? If you'll do me a favor, go back there to Nancy, and Jamie, would you get a card to Nancy, give it to Janet so she can fill it out? Give him just a minute, and then Nancy will reach out.
May I speak?
Let Nancy call you, if that's okay, please, ma'am. But of course you can speak. You are one of the most honored speakers in all of Roswell history.
Thank you, I think so too. Because I bring history and knowledge and facts.
Nancy, you ready?
Yes, Mayor, we have Janet Russell.
Thank you. Mr. Leatherman, could you please show the slide on here that goes way back where you talked about land acquisition? Keep going. Right there. Okay. Number 2, or number 1, buy, market, and sell model. I believe Mr. Leatherman misspoke when he said that the model said we buy land, or we take a loan, we buy land, then we sell it and make a profit. I think you need to know, and he used as an example the Southern Post. The Southern Post, we did not take a loan. We drained our solid waste management fund of $5 million. We lost the interest on that money for the 5 years that we used that money from taxpayers. We turned over the control of that property. It had a couple of shops in it, I think a grocery store and a barber shop or something, to the Downtown Development Authority, who then turned it over to a property management company. And when they finally sold it after 5 years, I think the profit, I use that in quotes, was about $47,000 or $67,000. That isn't really profit when you have lost several $100,000 in interest at that time, because I went to the bank and asked them, if I had $5 million in my bank account, how much interest would I have gotten? And they told me. And we also lost the property taxes because the city owned it and now we didn't have to pay the property taxes. So in effect, the Southern Post was not a moneymaker of anything, it was a loss. And we had no control over the outcome of that building, as witnessed by what we have, which is an ugly monstrosity that is an insult to the district. Now, I know you guys think everything is the bottom line and it's a spreadsheet, but there's more to quality of life than a spreadsheet. That is horrible. Everybody that I talk to of every age says it is as cold and as uninviting as a gulag, and I agree. But with the line here, the first little dot says allows the city to influence the project outcomes. They presented there were three different proposals for the development of that land, and we had no control. Creates a small investment through the land sale. No, this was a negative loss. If you're going to use the Southern Post as an example, we lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. By the way, the same property, you know where Vickery Mill Elementary School is, half a mile down the road, double the property size. Fulton County Schools paid the same amount for double the property that we paid for that. So I stood here and I said, we're overpaying. At that time, I said, we're overpaying for that property and we're going to be held hostage by the developers because they're going to say we paid X amount of dollars and now we need to get our money back. And it seems I was correct. So I just think that it's important, if you're going to create a policy based on false information, you might want to fix the information and the way it worked out.
Thank you. All right, I appreciate it very much. I will bring it back to council at this time. For council's, any comments or observations or questions?
I got a bunch.
Councilmember
I've
Allen
been writing here, so I got.
Yes, sir.
I always love when I get to agree with you, Janet, and I completely agree with you. We have done some things quite differently, and I want to talk a little bit about that on your tools slide, if you don't mind, Jeff. In particular, Janet, one of the things we did is we currently have it's called a bond anticipation loan with a bank, so that we can use that to close on property quickly and get a good price. And the other thing we're doing is we are working to make sure that we never buy a piece of property that we don't, either it's not for the city's use like a park specifically, or we don't already have the buyer, the developer in place and have worked through that process of defining what the success for that piece of ground is going to be. So that is quite a different day and quite a different tool set. So that's not much of a question, was it? I got to put a question mark at the end of it. So talk about our process there, brother Jeff, just for a moment. And why it's, and specifically to the point, why it's different than what we did with, and Daryl's going to talk a little bit more about this, Janet, in a little while, specifically around the way we're working with the DDA. So we'll get to that too.
Yeah, and I too just want to thank Ms. Russell for the opportunity to clarify my comments. My intent on the bullet point was not to say that Southern Post itself created an investment or created an opportunity. I actually didn't do a deep dive into Southern Post. That's just a representative example of the type of land transaction that I was talking about. And so I appreciate her history and the background on the borrowing for the property and for the land acquisition there. And I will say that, as from a deal structure perspective, to Councilmember Sell's question, is we are going through now and analyzing the entirety of the investment. What does it cost us to essentially hold or retain the property for the short period of time that we need to? What does it cost us from a tax basis perspective? What kind of tax basis do we intend to create out of the project, and how do we begin to forecast that? The reason that I have a general sense of what we're projecting on Southern Post for tax revenue is part of the analysis that we're doing and baselining the city on various projects that we're seeing coming forward. And we're doing that for all of our development projects. It is really important not only that we vet the capital that is being invested in the city of Roswell, the developers that are being proposed in the city of Roswell, but also the return on investment for the city of Roswell. Not just the investment of tax revenue or land transaction revenue or land lease revenue, But as Ms. Russell also stated, the investment of quality of life for the citizens of Roswell, and that's part of the entire picture that we're looking at. Not only Southern Post, but Hill Street and other projects not only need to score well from a balance sheet perspective, but they also need to score well from a quality of life perspective. And I think we can all find an agreement there that the goal and intent of our economic development strategy, as I mentioned earlier, is not only to protect our neighborhoods, but also to activate our commercial corridors in support of our quality of life overall.
Thank you, Jeff. And I just to echo what you're saying, obviously, look, understanding financials and putting those into equations is pretty important if you're going to put deal structures together. The first part of the requirement, which I didn't hear us mention, which I know you're smack in the middle of this, Jeff, is it's portfolio management. So one is you're vetting developers. Very first thing you look at is portfolio management. What does that mean? You want to see the work that the developer's done. If that does not meet the smell test, i.e. this looks going to look great, if you didn't do it great somewhere else, why are you going to do it great in my city, right? So the first part is portfolio. Obviously performance, obviously capital stacks, obviously the ability to get leverage, to get debt. All those things, like vetting those and understanding those are important components that I would say are gigantic distinctions for most governments that are not involved in those processes, and one that this city's gotten very intentional about, which makes a huge difference. Makes a huge difference in this Hill Street deal. This capital was vetted, the leverage was vetted, the leverage was vetted, the portfolio was vetted. I mean, all those pieces are important components. The USL piece, same thing. Portfolio vetting, portfolio interviewing, cap vetting, leverage vetting, performa vetting, all of those, gigantic. Those matter in terms of the end of the day, what kind of, so that you're not left to the good luck and wishes of of deals that like, why these deals last for 10 years and nobody puts in the market? It's because you didn't vet the capital. You didn't vet the portfolio. You didn't vet the ability to get leverage, to leverage debt. If you don't understand those things, you're not understanding, you're hoping to get lucky on a deal. That's what kind of Jeff's saying is, look, we've gotten out of that business. We're in a professional model of saying, look, before we go in to entertain somebody coming into our city, we're going to understand a whole set of criteria, starting with vetting the portfolio. Sorry to jump in. I know I'm echoing what you said, but I think it's important just to kind of reflag that. Yes, sir, Councilor Sills.
That's good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And when you talk about the portfolio, I thought you were going to say something you say frequently, which is the scarcity of real estate is a big thing. And so if you are, because we have such a limited supply of economic development space, we have to count the beans. The quality of life has to be there, but if you're choosing among projects and one of them doesn't cover its economic requirements, we should know that as a city that this better add a whole lot to quality of life because it's going to cost us and we're paying for it. So we're trying to make sure at least those things that are quantifiable in economic terms that we're doing those, and that's what we're doing. And that process, I want to talk a little bit about the Sear World contract because that is much debated and heard about. Do you mind going to the detail page? Right there. Okay, so I believe, Jeff, it is the fact that we have a number of contracts that have statements of work where we have a master agreement and we do periodic scopes of work for a particular phase of a project or something like that, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, you see it in a number of places across the city and other cities across the North Metro area. Yep.
And is there any other contract where we have a quarterly review where we say this is the project that they're working on and then we go step by step like this on a quarterly basis? Is there anybody else we do that for?
No, there's not.
Okay. Well, I want to speak specifically to the change in the way, listen, if you're going to buy a historic asset and let it sit there and you're not going to spend any money on it, that transaction's relatively straightforward and easy. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to have super high-powered skills to do that. But if you are going to do a project where you are vetting the capital and bringing in the developer you want, and we have one contract which we hope to bring in the not-too-distant future that has been in negotiations for 2 years. So that's a little different. Talk a little bit about the integration of Sear specifically in this process as we have changed the way we do economic development in this city.
Yeah. And so we'll talk about kind of the resources that SEER brings to allow us to scale at, I will say, lightning speed on various projects. As you see the scopes of work, and we've tried to detail down the scopes of work, and you'll see that in our next Q3 report, even finer details so that not only we, but also the community can track exactly what we're investing in from the city of Roswell's perspective on economic development. And that scalability is the first point that I will talk about. SEER as an entity is integrated in our economic development department. They're helping to project manage various aspects of our projects, including Hill Street, including our West Gateway project, alongside of our USL and Entertainment District project. And what that means is coordinating with developers on meetings, evaluating capital stacks. What that also means is looking at the pro formas, making evaluation on land transactions, the value of property. All of those exercises are integrated into these scopes of work that you see here and the SEER entity and their subcontractors behind that. Not all of this money is directly paid to SEER. They have a team of subcontractors behind them that are supporting on economic development analysis, that are supporting on financial analysis, that are supporting on real estate investment, that are supporting on real estate value. So as we start to work on either acquisition or evaluating the acquisition of land, all of that is built into the scopes of work, and they're able to scale, increase their capacity, and also decrease the capacity. The economic development work that we do can sometimes turn on a dime and turn off on a dime when either landowner decides that they no longer want to move forward with a project or a developer decides they don't want to move forward with a project. And instead of having the staff to have to find something for them to work on, we can just shut down a scope of work, turn it off, and then transition to the next project, and we don't have that on our ledger as an expense that we perhaps would in the future or for a traditional economic development model here in the city of Roswell. I think probably ask me another question, and I'll continue to dig into some of the details.
Let me give you one just for fun.
Sure.
I got two numbers for you. These are fun numbers. Just 66,330,000. Say, what is 66,330,000? That is without factoring time, cost, and money, what a 99-year lease at $670,000 is with no escalators, right? That's just saying, pretending like just dumb math. If you take $670,000, which is the ground lease on the Hill Street deal for 99 years, almost in perpetuity, right? No escalators, no cost, time, and money, just 99 years times $670,000 is $66,330,000. You say, why is that relevant? Name me a government that's gotten into the land lease basis of their business and put together a very sophisticated transaction, whereas most governments give money away to get a development deal. This government, because of the economic development team led by Peter Surkov and led with a very business-like entrepreneurial approach, has turned the tables on transactions, which means real dollars to the city of Roswell government, thus potentially easing the burden to the taxpayers. I'll give you another number. So that was $66,330,000, not accounting for cost, time, and money, not accounting for escalations. So it's not a very good number, right? It's much larger than that. Another number, $11 million. You say, why $11 million? Another simple number. Guess what the Summit building would have been if you take a pedestrian government all day long, price of a piece of commercial property is up for sale. No disrespect to anybody, but what do you think a pedestrian government is going to end up paying for it? $19 million. Because we had a sophisticated person involved in the process immediately went down from $19 million purchase to $8 million, $11 million delta. $11 million delta. That's more than the 5 years of the quote-unquote SEER contract that's supposedly in the bank. That's in which we already saw $480,000 of it didn't even come through in year one. I just say that is because it's hard to quantify value all the time, but sometimes you just look at two numbers, an $11 million value, and without even doing true cost, time, and money and escalators, $66 million value, that this particular vendor has brought to the equation in terms of value to the Roswell taxpayer, to the Roswell government.
Agree, and also, we're having to clean up a lot of blight that was left. And so we need to move quickly, and we need these skills now, and we won't need them for the long term. So using a consultant with the skills that Sear brings to the table, as you mentioned, none of those roles are in the city naturally. So we have to either wait till we develop them, or we put together a group of consultants and stuff like that, or we find somebody who has those skills and put them to work immediately, and that's what we chose to do. I have questions for Bill. You want to do those now, or do you want to have?
Might as well. Yes, sir.
All right. All right.
He's bringing that bad chart back up again.
There you go. Okay, so
Go to the previous one.
I took a few notes and I wanted to go through a couple of them. Right here, you said we were ahead of budget, so this is for 6 months. You said we are forecasting that we are going to be better than break even for the full year, ended 12/31/2025, correct?
Correct. I would say we're going to be in a surplus.
Yes, and you didn't mention the parking policy. So we had a policy change, sort of an audible the other day.
Yes, we had an audible. We had an audible.
So talk about the much ballyhooed $2.2 million in relationship to your forecast. You say that you are still going to be positive. You mentioned the contingency to the sales tax, which you talked a little bit about that. But would you talk about the parking policy? Did you include that in your estimate?
Yes. Right now, we have revised the parking policy revenue, reduced it approximately 85% from the original estimate that we included in the budget. One thing that's important to remember about the parking policy, the infamous $2.2 million, is that it has approximately $1.1 million of direct cost associated with implementing that policy. So by not implementing that policy, we don't incur the direct cost. So the net budget effect of the change in policy, just assuming we didn't get any of the parking revenue, would have been about $1.1 million.
Right.
So that number is further reduced by the fact that with the existing infrastructure that the city has for parking and the enforcement policies that were recently passed, we expect to collect about 15% of that revenue with no incremental costs.
You think you get $300,000? Sorry to put a number out there, but you still think there's about $300,000 you can actually collect this year?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And we're seeing some revenues come in monthly since the change in parking policy, and I don't think we've gone to full enforcement yet. Is that right,
No.
Jeff? We're still kind of doing hey, we're about to go to full enforcement, and people are complying, right? Get a notice, and it tends to be effective. The other thing we've done around sales tax, which I mentioned a little bit, I think everybody forgets that first quarter GDP actually went down a little bit because there was a rush on companies purchasing inventory from overseas, thereby avoiding potential tariff impacts and all that. Probably one of the best concurrent indicators of economic performance in our economy is real estate and retail sales. We're a very consumer-driven economy. We're a very homeowner-driven economy. And so looking at sales tax is a way to gauge the performance of the economy on a current basis. It's not a very good leading indicator, but it's a good indicator of where you are in the moment. I will tell you, based on first quarter GDP, I felt sales tax revenue would go down. So we've been building a contingency into the budget reserve for that amount, and we continue to see sales tax not only outperform the contingency, but outperform the original budget. So that's why I'm rolling that contingency forward until at least the end of the third quarter, when we will have a more fuller picture both of property tax revenue as well as sales tax revenue.
But just to interrupt you, from a very conservative perspective, you continue to put a negative bogey on a forecast. Like, you've changed the forecast and it's a negative bogey. No, the
I'm a
fact that.
CPA, that's what I do.
Exactly. In other words,
So I funded parties.
we're very conservative in the projections. This
Yes,
is
sir.
not like, it's the opposite of optimistic. We are conservative in our projections.
So I think where you're driving at is, does our forecasted surplus at year end accommodate the loss of parking revenue? And the answer is definitively yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. And you are still comfortable that we're going to meet that. So our official city position is that we are on track to be a positive surplus at the end of the year.
Yes, sir. The magnitude of that surplus remains uncertain, but we do expect to be in a surplus.
Okay. I want to turn just brief, well, I don't know how brief it will be, but turn to, anyway.
Turn to.
Let's talk about liquidity, if we could, for a moment. The cash reserves, you go to that page?
My pride and joy.
There you go. Okay. So how is the best way for us as a city and residents to understand the city's fiscal position and the risk that's based on it because of lack of liquidity of the city? Can you talk a little bit what measure you look at to make sure that the city's financial fisc is such that we can support a surprise and that we have the liquidity to do what we need to do and meet our obligations?
So you're in the business, you know, it's a little bit more complicated answer than I can deliver here, but I can summarize it in 4 key points. I look at unrestricted cash. How much cash do I have on my balance sheet to spend the way I see fit without any sort of imposed regulations or otherwise? That's the cash for emergency purposes. So if everything goes haywire and we need to make payroll, we have cash to make payroll. Not budget, because budget's a somewhat manufactured number, but if you've been in this business long enough, you know the expression cash is king. So we look for cash. Second thing I look for is restricted cash. A lot of these restricted cash programs are dedicated to specific spending that's important, that if we didn't have restricted cash for them, then we'd have to go out and find other ways to fund these programs. So those 2 components, restricted, unrestricted cash, are very important. The other 2 elements I like to look at personally, some people get hung up on assets. Assets don't mean a lot to me if they're encumbered with a ton of liabilities. So I look to, before my city experience, I would look to equity. That here, similar concept, is net position. And in particular, as you drive through your net position, you talk about a stack of net
Capital.
Position, capital stack. The unfunded general fund balance, that unfunded.
Unrestricted.
The uncommitted.
Unrestricted.
Unrestricted, sorry. I'm still hung up on this mistake over here.
I'm so sorry, Bill.
No, don't be. I made a mistake. So your unrestricted general fund balance is probably the best source of liquidity that you can use. It's a key measure that the rating agencies look at when they evaluate our credit capacity. How much retained earnings, for lack of a better phrase, what is your unrestricted retained earnings, your unencumbered retained earnings that you have available if all of your plans don't work out by certain degrees or certain factors? So in our case, as part of our budgeting process, we want to make sure that our unrestricted fund balance will cover at least 25% of our forecasted expenditures for the upcoming budget period. So that means if we have a 25% miss across the board, which is highly unlikely, there's a lot of levers we could pull before we get to that point. We may not want to, but there's levers we could pull before we have to hit the balance sheet. We would still cover 3 months of spending between the unrestricted fund balance and the unrestricted cash on the books. So that's how I look at liquidity, and that's how I look at our solvency, and it's also how our rating agencies look at us.
I'll come to that one in just a second. I asked you, when I saw this at committee, I asked you if you could give me you don't have a June comparison on here, because June is, of course, in the cycle of our collections of our property taxes, June is the off period, right? So
Right.
December is fully larded with the tax receipts from property taxes and such as that. So I ask you to go back to an earlier period. I ask you to go back to June of 2017. Were you able to tell? Can you tell me what the unrestricted balances in the company's or the city's financial position was in June of 2017?
So the unrestricted fund balance in the year ended 6/30/2017 was $20 million approximately.
All right.
And we are at $34 million right now. We were at $34 million as of 12/31/2024.
And that's the cash.
That's unrestricted fund balance. Cash was higher.
Just different, yeah.
But that's the amount of balance sheet that you can use to fund overruns, other projects, whatever. And so that number is 70% higher today than it was in 2017.
All right. Okay. Last boring topic, I promise.
These aren't boring, brother.
Okay. Let's talk about the bond rating, because
Never got applause.
because everything you
Call
talk.
to order, Alan. There are 2, there's a Wilson and a Sells back there. Got to call you to order. What's up?
She wanted to see us do something, that's all. So the last is the bond rating, which bond rating is like a FICO score, as I understand it. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, exactly. A FICO score is your credit score as an individual. It shows how you manage your finances. It shows your income levels. It shows how you manage your debt. It shows what amount of savings that you might have on your personal balance sheet.
Right.
A lot of factors go into the FICO score, but obviously the higher the better.
Right, and in bond rating, what they're saying is that this is the risk that you as an entity pose to a lender. That's what they're, just like a FICO score. And so talk about the bond rating that we just got, if you don't mind.
So we underwent a bond rating exercise in, I believe it was May or June, to issue the general obligation bonds, the $93-something million offering we just wrapped up this year, a few months ago. And Standard & Poor's and Moody's both confirmed our bond rating at AAA. And that AAA had been issued on the first tranche that this mayor and council had issued back in 2023.
Okay, and so just to keep it on the same sort of thought, we have an 850 FICO score as a city. That's what you're saying?
In essence, yes. Anything lower would result in a higher rate of interest on the borrowing.
And there's no higher score than AAA. We are the top of the art form.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So other entities may have larger borrowing capacity, but they are not going to have a better score.
Right. That borrowing capacity could be driven by the number of assets they have, their population, their taxing power. There's a lot of things that go into it. But for the size of city we are, size of balance sheet that we have in our credit score, yeah, we are a top-notch credit rating. And you'll hear a little bit more about that in the PFA presentation.
Yes. And the format of our financial statements is consistent for the last 20 years. So anybody who wishes to can go back and look at past financial statements and see that the AAA rating that we have today is rock solid, and the city is not in any way in any financial distress. Is that a fair statement?
The only footnote I would put to that, and I have to do as a CPA, there's been some accounting standards issued in the intervening 7-year period, but mostly to gross up the balance sheet on the asset and liability side, nothing that really affects the presentation, nothing that affects your qualification for outstanding financial statement awards and things like that, which we have earned for, I think, almost 20 years now.
So if anybody wished to go look at it as opposed to like having a press conference, they could see this fact if they went and looked at the financial statements. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Alan, since you're doing a line of questioning, is it fair to ask, why have you not pursued, because it's interesting, there's been some past elected officials, some of them even chief financial officers of former companies, some are attorneys, some are business people, kind of surprised, who are running on talking about distrust, financial distrust of the city, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just kind of curious, is there any, recently this city discovered, not only has the city gone from priority-based budgeting to zero-based budgeting to the next iteration, which is strategic priority budgeting, thanks to bringing in a gentleman from Deloitte in the name of Bill Godshall. But all that's to say is that not only are things transparent, to use that term, they're hugely illuminating. And through this process of bringing real discipline and financial discipline to this structure, to this entity, to this government, this city has been able to do things that were heretofore unthought of doing. For example, the city could not figure out for 20 years how to find $5.8 million to go from a part-time fire department to a full-time department. So for 20 years, 2 mayors and past elected officials were unable, knowing that everybody that's the city of Roswell, the largest city in the United States with a part-time fire department, they couldn't figure out how to get $5.8 million a year. So this elected team and senior leadership team comes in, and within 90 days comes up with a plan to figure out how to put $5.8 million into the play over a 5-year transition play, of which we're in year 4. Couldn't figure out, by the way, when we came in, we discovered that there was $450 million of operational deficiencies in the infrastructure of the city. That's why we went to our fellow brothers and sisters, our fellow residents, said, we need $180 million, of which $107.8 goes to Parks and Rec, where there's a tremendous need. $52 million goes to public safety, which is a tremendous need, and $20 million goes to a parking garage. $180 million, all three. Thank goodness the Roswell residents voted overwhelmingly for those 3 bonds. But the reality was the city was in a much deeper hole. And yet, this senior leadership and elected council over 3 years has been able to reduce taxes on the property tax side and keep them the same. It's the lowest property tax and yet brought real financial discipline. I'll give you another one, which is so fascinating to hear past mayors and city councilmen come together, critical somehow of the trust of the senior leadership team in the city. And most of you won't know this, but you'll find this fascinating. One of the things that we discovered, talk about a shortfall, is through the management structure of the pension program to the city employees. The city of Roswell subsidized to the GMA's pension plan over $20 million, and the city, some of these geniuses, had no idea. We discovered it, we solved for it, we moved the pension plan, and we figured out how to absorb those dollars without affecting the taxpayers. So when people talk about public trust, one, let's be truthful about illumination. Let's be truthful about competence. Let's be truthful about trust. I heard a city council member mention today there's a crisis. You're right. There's been a crisis. That's why the people on this stage ran for office. Because for 25 years, the city was not served with great financial dexterity and competence and understanding. And so you had to bring people to the table like Alan Sells, who is a businessman, who should be asking business questions, who's a sophisticated business person, who can go deeper and deeper into the apparatus. You have to bring in people like Lee Hills, Christine Hall, Will Mortland, Sarah Beeson, David Johnson, to have the formidable wisdom to hire the correct people to run the city government, to create a C-suite, to create the operational white space, to have real strategy. So you don't have a director of a particular agency who's heads down, who's got a job to do, and yet at the same time you expect that person to have incredible strategy foresight and ability to navigate projects well within their depth. Thus, you pay up to $2 million a year to bring a sophisticated vendor in, like Sear, to help you bring in a complex economic development strategy that's worth hundreds, if not billions of dollars to the city of Roswell. A small price to pay with a great rate of return. So, Mr. Sells, please keep prosecuting, because I heard today, for example, that the city was, Chief Financial Officer Bill Gutschall, I heard today that the city was adjudicating funds from bonds to the general fund to make the numbers look good. It's amazing the depths of just silliness that people will participate in to try to cast a shadow on this government, which is at the end of the day all about trying to earn the public trust. Councilmember Johnson.
I think, Mr. Mayor, if I can interrupt you for a second, sorry. You missed one very important department that we put a lot of funds in, and we honored that department earlier tonight, right? Our police officer paid the highest in the North Fulton area, correct?
The lowest.
Well, they were paid the lowest.
For 25
they were
years,
paid the lowest.
they were the lowest in the North Fulton area.
And today they're paid the highest.
We're in a race.
We're in a race.
We go back and forth.
No vacancies.
3 years.
And someone's life was saved by that gentleman's action earlier back in August in 2024.
Multiple.
And he probably came to Roswell because of the pay package that I wasn't here when you guys started it, so I'm not going to take any credit, but that you, Will, Christine, and Lee put, and Sarah might have been here. You've ran 8,000 elections in 3 years, so and you have too. Yeah, second only to Councilman Sells. I don't remember the exact dates when y'all started the pay package, but that gentleman probably came here because of our pay package and our retirement package, and lives were saved because he came. But I guess we've figured out why the former elected officials.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. All right, Councilmember Sells, any further questions, sir? I know I've interrupted you.
I did have down to talk about unfunded pensions, but we're going to come back to that next quarter.
Yes, we are taking steps to address the unfunded benefit.
Right.
That Mr. Mayor
I've got some
mentioned.
specific questions that we talked about, and we'll come to those, but suffice it to say that that's something that's been a bee in my bonnet since I joined council, because not only was it unfunded because they allowed it to grow, but they didn't do anything about it when they changed over, which there were strategies to do, and we'll talk about that next quarter.
Yeah, talk about, as you well know as a CFO, particularly as a CFO, you have a fiduciary responsibility that has legal implications, as you well know, particularly when you work for a company, and particularly the shareholders, and particularly if you work for a couple of guys or gals who own the company, right? It's a serious business. We all have a fiduciary responsibility and accountability, and we all take it serious. So I take umbrage when people say silly things, particularly to people that know better, that served in office, that served in elected office, that had more information. Some of them did, some of them didn't, and are silly, silly people, not serious. Not serious about solving problems then, not serious about solving problems now. Get out of the way, let serious people work on solving problems, because we're working every single day to earn our fellow residents' trust, and we're open and engaged. And by the way, most of these people that came out have never been serious about engagement, have never been serious about saying, hey, I have a challenge, or I have a question, or I don't know, or can we discuss? I'm a former elected official, I'd like to talk to you about it. Most of it's grandstanding, formative theater. And it's interesting today, you know what? You get some hits and likes on social media, but this is serious business. It's serious business for serious people to take on, to be serious about getting results for their fellow residents. All right, thank you very much. I was quit yakking. And this, I think you're done, aren't you? Are there any other questions from council for Bill or for Jeff? No. Okay. That's it. I think we've already been back and forth, right? Okay. So that's at the end of the questions. So City Clerk Nancy Long, would you please read the second item on the regular agenda?
Yes, Mayor, this is approval of CU 2025-1040 and CV 2025-1039, located at 12220 King Circle for a carriage house. This will be presented by Jeannie Payton, Planning and Zoning Director.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Jeannie Payton, welcome. We're so glad you're here. Hi, Jeannie.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jeannie Payton, the Planning and Zoning Director. The item I have before you tonight is a conditional use request, 2025-1040, with a concurrent variance, 2025-1039. The applicant is requesting a conditional use for a carriage house on their property, and it has a concurrent variance request that goes along with it to increase the maximum conditioned square footage from 1,000 to 1,240 square feet. This shows the property on Kings Circle, outlined in blue. There's a two-story home, a lake. They have a pool accessory in the backyard. This shows the zoning of the property, RS30. It's surrounded by other RS30 properties, and the white is the city of Milton. The Kings Circle Road frontage is in Milton, and all of the surrounding properties to the east, north, and south. The lot is again zoned RS30, single-family estate. The property is 8.22 acres and has frontage off of King Circle. There's an existing 6,239 square foot home on the property that's about 350 square feet or linear feet back from the right-of-way. Again, there's a pool in the backyard. The property is wooded except for a lawn that surrounds the house, and the applicant is proposing to construct a 4,600 square foot accessory structure with an upper level that is conditioned as a carriage house that does equate to 1,240 square feet, which is 240 square feet over the maximum of 1,000 square feet. This shows the site plan. The house is in the upper part. This is the zoomed in. The carriage house is proposed to be adjacent to the house, to the south side. Here's a picture to show where the carriage house is proposed in the grassy area there. Staff recommended approval with conditions of the conditional use request for the carriage house. If Mayor and Council choose to approve the conditional use request, staff recommends the following conditions. That it be in substantial accordance with the site plan received on May 13th, and that the applicant, as the arborist intended, provide recompense for the 26-inch hardwood tree. Staff did recommend denial for the concurrent variance to increase the maximum size of the conditioned space. Again, we discussed this in committee, and I know this is something that Mayor and Council had a question. We base our recommendations off technicality of the code, and there was no hardship. So that is where staff came up with that. The cases were heard by Planning Commission, who also made a recommendation of approval of the carriage house and denial of the concurrent variance. Have any questions?
Thank you, Jeannie, so much. This time, I ask City Clerk Nancy Long, are there any Roswell residents who would like to speak on this item?
There are no public speakers for this item.
The applicant is here and does have a presentation if you'd so like to hear that.
Feel free to come up, say hi. Make sure you put your stuff in there with Nancy. I will tell you, I cannot predict, will not be voting, but I don't know if you need to make a presentation, to be quite honest with you, unless you like coming up in front of camera. Yeah. Councilmember Beeson.
You're more than welcome to stand there. Spoiler alert, if you watched committee meeting or if you guys attended the committee meeting, council as well as the mayor were very aware of the requests that were being made, the size of your property being 8 acres, is that?
Yeah,
about 8 acres, and understanding that this is a fairly negligible change given just the size of the parcel as a whole, and how that exception is probably different than you would see on somebody who's on a half an acre of property, which is more likely what we would see. As Mayor Wilson said, we don't vote in advance. However, we did vote in committee unanimously in order to override the staff recommendation and instead grant the variance on behalf of mayor and council. But if you have prepared a song and dance for us today, I don't want to steal your thunder.
Oh, no, you guys have had a long evening. I think
we make our own long evening, but yes.
I have a whole new respect for how sausage is made in the city government
You
now.
shouldn't. But that said, we also understand that you took time out of your evening to be here, and we want to grant you your time as a resident if you want it before the elected body, but we're also very amenable to your concerns.
Nope, I think we're all aligned. I think we're good. I'll save you guys 5 minutes. And
favorite words I've ever heard in my life.
You're a wise set of people, although it's not a bait and switch, I promise. All right, are there any Roswell residents? There are none signed up, right, Nancy? Thank you. All right, would the council like to address this matter at all? Boom, good to go. Does everybody have clarity on this matter? As to Sarah's point, everybody remember the discussion and the... Sarah, make a motion, please.
Motion to approve CU 20251040 and CV 20251039, 12220 King Circle for a carriage house with approving both the I'm sorry, I'm trying to make sure that we are.
The language is correct.
Yes. We would like to approve the language and approve the concurrent variance for the increase to the maximum conditioned square footage for a carriage house from 1,000 square feet to 1,240 square feet. Attorney David Davidson, can you double check me on the phrasing of that motion?
David, just help Sarah and I with this language so we make sure we get it right.
That was right. You approved the conditional use and approved the variance to the 1,240 square feet?
Yes. So motion made for conditional use and for the concurrent variance to go to 1,240 square feet, right? Seconded by Councilmember Johnson. Lee, Allen, Will, Christine, do you understand the motion second? Yes. Sarah, you understand it, and David, you understand the motions you made? All right. You guys are comfortable, right? You understand how this is going down?
Yes,
we
do.
All in favor of the motion made by Sarah and seconded by David, please do so by raising your hands. Let the record show that the motion passes unanimously along with the conditional variance, I believe, correct? Conditional use. Conditional use. Congratulations, passes unanimously. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys rock. Appreciate it.
We don't hear that often.
Oh, my God. Yeah. That's the truth. Okay. City Clerk Nancy Long, would you please read the third item on the regular agenda?
Yes, Mayor. This is approval of a resolution to adopt the 2025 Annual Action Plan for Community Development Block Grant and Budget Amendment to set up the grant an amount of $400,668, presented by Bill Godshall, Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Welcome, Bill. Again, Do you have any mistakes on this particular one that I'm going to pull up on you?
I'm sure you'll find them.
Okay.
These are little Easter eggs I've left for you.
Thank you, sir.
I didn't prepare this deck, so it's very likely extremely clean and good. So our annual action plan for 2025 specifies the intended use of our block grant funds. We align these with the consolidated plan from 2023 through 2027. In that process, our number one priority need was identified as improving affordable housing. Accordingly, we are looking at the total allocation for 2025 of $400,668. This is the amount that we would use to repay in full the Section 8 loan from HUD of $2,039,000. The loan proceeds will go to the Roswell Housing Authority for the Pelfrey Pines redevelopment. The block grant program requires public participation, including a 30-day comment period. We initially brought this forward on June 27th and opened the comment period. The comment period remained open through July 28th. A draft plan is available on the city website, and hard copies are also located here at City Hall, at the Roswell Housing Authority, at the Roswell Public Library across the street, and the East Roswell Public Library over on the east side of town. So just a little bit about the process. We had the public hearing on July 22nd at 5 p.m. Across the hall in room 220. We had 5 attendees, 2 residents, 2 staff, and 1 official. Notices for the open meeting were provided through an AJC legal ad, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution legal ad, on June 27th. We also posted on our RoswellConnections.com story on July 9th. We then did a press release 2 days later on July 11th, and we did posts on Facebook and Instagram on July 9th, 16th, 20th, and 22nd, as well as next door on July 9th and July 22nd. So with this public process and the attendant advertising, no public comments were received in that process. We could also talk a little about the history of Section 108 loan if you want to, but those were also subjected to public hearings and processes throughout the life of the program. Our timeline at this point is to, on the Section 108 loan, the application was submitted in December 2024. Our commitment from HUD was expected in July 2025. There's a little bit of a hang-up with congressional approval. We've been assured by HUD that it's coming. And it should come in time before we do the final closing to allow for the redevelopment of the property. Those payments will begin in fall 2025. The annual action plan is due to HUD on August 16th, 5 days from now. So once we have, or if we receive approval, we are prepared to execute against that approval and file that action plan immediately. Again, the public comment period has expired. It ran for full 30 days. With your approval here today, we will submit our plan no later than the 14th. And with that, well, I'll take any questions.
Bill, thank you so much. I need to comment on one thing, because I knew you're going to come. Lee, I'm going to come to you, because this is like an unbelievable job you've done on it. So I'm going to say, hey, Nancy, City Clerk Nancy Long, are there any Roswell residents who would like to speak on this item? And so one of the things I guess I need to address, because I need to take the heat off of council and the heat off of staff, the only person to blame on the Roswell residents speaking at meetings is me. It is part of the rules that I created when I became mayor. It's pretty simple for me. People say, why do you do that? Why do you do that? Well, I've been a corporate business person and a small business person. And from basically 2001 to 2025, 2024, I was a small business person. And so I did businesses. I had businesses in many cities and towns, not a lot, but 8, I think, all told. And as a small business person, I never dreamed ever going to a city council meeting to go plead a case on a business matter. I would pick up the phone, call somebody in the staff, might talk to a city council member, occasionally might talk to a mayor, and advocate for the thing that I was wanting for and needing help for on the business side, on a business issue that I may have had. But recognizing that I was not a resident of that city, it never occurred to me that I would go to the public format where the other residents were of that city and that I would speak as a business person. And yes, I was a tax-paying business. But we had something called an occupational tax. It's called a privilege tax. In other words, I'm privileged to do business in that city, whether I'm a resident or not a resident. Business is a separate transaction. So from a very, very deep philosophical level, I didn't understand, yeah, businesses want to speak. By the way, businesses have full access to the mayor and council and to the staff. We reach out to them routinely. They come see us. They come meet with us because I believe in that. We want to serve our businesses. This is a public meeting for residents. And if this city was formed today, it'd be all the people who put the city together who would go vote, and they would say, hey, can we get together and talk about our problems and our solutions? And that's what I still believe is the basis of that meeting. So if anybody wants to know, and anybody wants to blame, hey, why don't businesses aren't allowed to speak? It's me. Don't blame the council. Don't blame the staff. It's me and my philosophical belief from my own experience in life and going to meetings and recognizing, like, I would never go to a public meeting where I wasn't a resident. And I was just a business. I would call and talk to the staff or the council behind the scenes or the mayor and advocate my position, but I would never go as a constituent because I don't vote. I don't vote. I may pay taxes, but I don't vote. Big separation. So anybody wants to know, that's the answer to that question. I've heard it out there. There it is. All right, City Clerk Nancy Long. Are there any Roswell residents who would like to speak on this item?
Mayor, there are no Roswell residents to speak on this item.
Other than me just jabbering. Thank you so much. Are there any, does the council have any comments or questions? Lee? Oh my gosh, superstar on this issue, done an amazing job. Talk about it. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. I thought I would walk through the process a little bit because this is on the surface and in the paper here, it seems like just another process and another transaction, but this is actually a historic moment in the city of Roswell. And we've had a Roswell Housing Authority here for years and years and years, and because our previous leadership has done nothing with the Roswell Housing Authority until this mayor and Will Morthland and I were elected and came in and joined Christine, and then Sarah, David, and Alan joined us. We went from 0 cares to 7 yeses to rescuing a failing federal program called HUD. And this agency continues to take advantage of municipalities and counties, letting local people shoulder the burden of a failed project. So I never thought I would be advocating for this, but it came down to me when I took this role. These are Roswell residents that are suffering. So I just thought I'd walk through a little bit. I have a good friend who got me involved just because she was talking about it a lot, that served on the board years back, and I got to know a lot about the Roswell Housing Authority. When I decided to run, I went to a couple of board meetings at the Housing Authority, and I had an eye-opening event that there was a need.
And you dragged Christine and I.
I did. You were there. Yep, you were there. And it wasn't, this isn't the city's jurisdiction, by the way. We can go to the board meetings just like anyone here can go to the board meetings. But I kept going. I was fascinated. I'm like, this, there's something here. So the board that was in place before we took office, they had put in an application to do a redevelopment on 199 Grove Way. And if you've driven over there, it's gone now. It was in terrible shape. Of the 40 units, only 28 were being utilized because each one had been closed off as people moved on. And so anyway, they didn't have enough points to make the capital stack or the loan application. And the biggest thing that they needed was, aside from money, the biggest thing they needed was support from a government agency to help the point system on the application. So once we came into office, we started looking into it earnestly how we could do that. The board decided that they wanted to go after the loan again and came and very professionally, I don't want to say begged, but very professionally asked for $2 million. And of course, we're shell-shocked. We've just come into office and we're trying to piece together what our priorities are, but it just seemed like a no-brainer that we would do what we could to get this turned around. The property's blighted. The other properties are blighted. So I got busy, talked to the mayor, talked to my colleagues, pulled together a lot of our top brass here in the city, and we worked on, with full support of the elected body here, worked on how we could come up with the $2 million that they needed. And so I want to tell you about CDBG. These are short, but just for those of you that have never heard of that, that's a community development block grant, and it's the program that provides annual grants on a formula basis to states, cities, and counties to develop viable urban communities by providing decent housing and a suitable living environment, and by expanding economic opportunities principally for low and moderate income persons, which is exactly how this money should be spent, is to serve people that are in need. CDBG's flexibility empowers people and communities to design and implement strategies tailored to their own needs and priorities, which is really key. And so there are a lot of places that you can spend that money, but this just seemed to have the most impact and the most long-term impact for the city. Both for those that live there, for those that live near there, and people that drive through there to know that they're taken care of. So through that, we did a couple of things. We passed 2 resolutions for the CDBG money that Bill just referenced. 2023, we had the dollars that came in. We passed a resolution to reallocate $353,657 over to the demolition of 199 Grove Way. And then we also had unexpended funds, which means we had allocated money to other projects and other agencies in the city, and they were, for one reason or another, not able to complete what they said they were going to do on their application when they were awarded the money. So we reallocated that money, and the total for that was $434,019.65. So that was able to take care of the demolition that happened earlier this year, which is a huge step. So that didn't cost the city anything other than time, labor, sweat, blood, and tears working through what we do here. We had lots of different departments working on this, how we'd put it together. During this time, I was working with the leadership inside the city to figure out how we could make this work, this loan, their capital stack. And Section 108 loan was talked about, and that is a loan through the CDBG program. And that, I just want to tell you briefly, the Section 108 loan guarantee program provides community development block grant, which is CDBG, recipients with the ability to leverage their annual grant allocation to access low-cost, flexible financing for economic development, housing, public facility, and infrastructure projects. Communities can use Section 108 guaranteed loans to either finance specific projects or to launch loan funds to finance multiple projects over several years. Section 108's unique flexibility and range of applications makes it one of the most potent and important public investment tools that HUD offers to state and local governments. It is often used to catalyze private economic activity in underserved areas in cities and counties across the nation, or to fill a financing gap in an important community project. This program's flexibility repayment terms also make it ideal for layering with other sources of community and economic development financing, including but not limited to new market tax credits and low-income housing tax credits and opportunity zone equity investments. So what this does is allow us to continue to get the CDBG money each year, which is $380,000 to $400,000 a year. We put the money out front, the $2 million, and we're able to pay ourselves back through the government-funded money through CDBG, which was a really resourceful way of going about rescuing this failing project. So over the last several years, I've had the opportunity to go to D.C. and lobby some of our electeds in D.C. and agencies for money. And Mr. Knighton and I were involved in a meeting with HUD. I don't think they had seen anybody. That was 22, wasn't it, Mr. Knighton? 2022, and they've been locked down on COVID time, and so we came in with our COO, Mr. Knighton, me. I had invited one of our county commissioners. I feel like we had one more, maybe Daryl, were you with us on that one? Our economic development director. So we came in, and when I say entertained the HUD staff, we did because they hadn't seen a government do something like this. And they had several people from other cities on Zoom while we're in the meeting. I think we were there 2 hours. I mean, I remember thinking, it was pretty phenomenal. But they were fascinated that we were able to make this happen. So with that, we moved forward. Penrose had been identified in the rejected application the year before. They're still on the hook. They came to the table and put the capital stack together to put this redevelopment in motion. And we are right here, right now, this month, like within 2 weeks, they will close on this loan. And Penrose is ready to put shovels in the ground right after Labor Day. So I just want to tell you, this didn't happen overnight, and it's been tumultuous. I'm not saying that for me. I'm just saying very, very complicated dealing with the feds and.
But Lee, let's go back to square one.
Okay.
Okay, so number one, you've done yeoman's work. You've been a rock star, and you haven't gotten much credit. I wish the residents of Roswell know what a difference you've made. But let's talk about it. Day one, RHA, the only people that knew about the RHA were the people that served on the board. Nobody in City Hall knew about it.
No.
There was no pass-off. There was no relation from the previous mayor and council. RHA was largely ignored. Once we came in and began to get our feet on the ground and say, what is RHA? Who is RHA? How are they being serviced, i.e., what is our role? What's our relationship with it? Roswell Housing Authority, federal HUD program. We began to find out some very telling things. Mr. Knighton, through the city government, we began to say, look, here's the first problem. We have a building that's in critical failure in the city of Roswell that could collapse at any moment of time and potentially kill 31 elderly people. Now, you talk about, I really go back again to my good friends, previous mayors and city council people who were so outraged about public trust and all these other issues they raised. And I'm thinking, in your city, where were you when you had a building that you were responsible for, obviously HUD is, but we're responsible for building structures in the city of Roswell. And this building literally was on the potential of collapsing at any time. And it really took us, and we figured out, we sat down and said, look, this is an emergency. We don't care. And if you remember, we took a beating politically on this. How dare you do this? Well, I don't know. I don't save it. You beat up on me politically all you want, but we're going to step in and we're going to save lives. And we had to go through the impossible structure of moving those residents in a housing authority, a federal housing authority, to help them find homes, which again was another giant leap of faith because we technically don't have control. And then we said, as a body, you know what? What we want is if we're going to have a housing authority, we want to have the most pristine housing in a housing authority. You can't have substandard housing in the city of Roswell, and you certainly can't have it in a housing authority. So we said that becomes an edict for us. And we have a board that manages it, which we don't get to control. We just appoint. But we said, you know what? We're going to start leveraging this deal so we do get control. Thus, we came up with the financial instrument. We said, you know, the CDBG, we have a lot of good charities, which, by the way, I give to in the city. They're receiving the money from the CDBG. Again, seems very political to me, not very logical. We took that away, another political hit in this city, because we did the right thing. And we found a home for CDBG as it was rightly ordained from the program itself. And through that, we create a structure to financially solve for the RHA, which was help them put a loan together, which got the points, and help put the cap stack together so the developer could put a development together, by the way, which also doubles the amount of affordable housing for Roswell residents inside of the housing authority. So think about that. Think about that. You had a building in the side of the city of Roswell that was in critical failure, and nothing got done about it until this senior leadership team, this council, this elected leadership got into it, and then came up with real solutions on how to solve for it financially, now thus developing in what you're seeing, which is a loan and the commitment to help put the whole deal together, which you're going to see a closing on that and breaking ground very, very soon. So
Yes.
congratulations, Lee, on your great work.
Last couple of things. It is rumored that your predecessor was trying to do a land swap with Sandy Springs to get these people out of here, but I can't substantiate that. This project will replace 40 units with 102. 99 of them will be single bedrooms, 3 will be double bedrooms. The previous tenants that were there were seniors or disability-ridden residents. So they will have an opportunity to be the first ones in line to apply back in. The new development will take about 18 months, so spring of 2027 is when we can expect a brand-new fancy housing complex. It's got all sorts of amenities inside, meeting space, wraparound services included. They have an enclosed dumpster, which will take a lot of the problems that we've dealt with people coming over to the housing authority properties and dumping their own stuff over there, an property management office, a rooftop patio outside, lots of lighting in the back, and I'm really, really proud that this whole group has come together on many levels for the last, it's been over 4 years for me, but tickled to death that we're at this place. And then this fall will be an application for Phase 2, which is the property directly across the street, and that one, once developed and opened up, will have a few singles, some 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms in that one. So
Thank you, Lee.
thank you, Mayor,
Thank
for
you
your
s-
support, and thank you to my colleagues for your undying support for this. I know every single person up here has supported this one way or another, and all said, yes, go for it. So this wasn't a solo act, but yes, I've stuck with it, and it's been an honor, and I'm delighted to see it through. The public will be invited to come to the grand opening, the groundbreaking.
Any other additional comments from, yes, sir, Councilman Worthlin?
Councilmember Hills, when we were carpooling to newly elected leadership up at University of Georgia, Athens, the newly elected roles that everyone is required to take, the education, I remember us talking about this in that carpool. I remember talking about this conversation, and that happened in the very first quarter of our leadership. So congratulations to you. You have been in there and really carried the water on this topic from day one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Willie. All right, any other comments, thoughts, questions from council? If not, do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve a resolution to adopt the 2025 Annual Action Plan, which is referred to as the AAP, for Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Budget Amendment BA 2257-0101-08-11-25 to set up the grant in the amount of $400,668.
Thank you, Councilmember Hills. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilman Markland. All those in favor of passing the approval of this resolution, please do so by raising your hands. Let the record show that the vote is 6-0 and passes unanimously. Thank you very much. City Clerk Nancy Long, would you please read the 4th item on the regular agenda?
Yes, Mayor, this is approval of a resolution to approve the bond resolution of the City of Roswell Public Facilities Authority, authorizing the issuance of PFA Revenue Bond Series 2025, and to authorize the execution of an intergovernmental lease agreement between the City of Roswell and the Public Facilities Authority regarding the use of the Sproul property. This will be presented by Bill Godshall.
Welcome, Bill.
Thank you for having me back. Okay, so this is a revenue bond issuance by the Public Facilities Authority. Councilmember Sells talked a little bit about this, as well as Senior Vice President Jeff Leatherman, as one of our financing tools that was put in place, I believe in 2024. It predates me, but not by much. Legislative Act created the Public Facilities Authority that allows us to acquire land for general city purposes and include the financing within the PFA. And by use of the PFA, we're able to basically achieve tax-free offering rates that are comparable to what the city would achieve, but at a little bit lower issuance cost. So we are seeking approval to enter into, so I'll back up for a second. The PFA, as its body last week, approved the issuance of a revenue bond of $10 million, $7.5 million of which was to finance the Sproul acquisition, the remainder to finance design, engineering, and other costs related to the property, as well as some closing costs. So in connection with that revenue bond, the PFA needs to enter into an intergovernmental lease agreement with the city to provide a cash flow necessary to service that debt back to the bank. And so we'll talk a little about the overview of the bid process and all of that, but the main thing we're here today is for City Council to endorse or approve its side of the lease that was approved by PFA last week. So just that last bullet really summarizes our purpose here, that under the lease agreement, the authority will agree to provide funds to finance the project and will agree to lease the project to the city. And the city will agree to pay to the authority from its general fund or from the proceeds of a tax levied on all taxable property located within the corporate limits of the city at such rate as rates may be necessary to make the payments to the authority. So we have the flexibility of how to make these payments, and we'll talk about the payment stream a little bit. I think it's important to talk about the RFP process too, because this gets a little bit to what our AAA rating does for us. Our financial advisors in this area is First Tryon, highly respected firm. They work with a number of municipalities all throughout the Southeast. They put together the RFP for us, and in the process, we were submitted to 58 local, regional, and national banks. The submission was, the RFP request was $10 million. We requested terms of 15 and 20 years, and we also asked for prepayment flexibility so that if you as an elected council decide that rates are opportunistic and allow us to refinance, that we could go out and do something like that, or take advantage of other aggregate borrowings where we might be able to push our total rate down. So on June 30th, we received 6 proposals, what I would call 6 legitimate proposals. There was one other in there, but they were very highly priced. We reviewed the proposals both internally with staff as well as with our bond counsel, particularly Gary Pennell and Woodward. And the recommendation was to select a 20-year proposal from Webster Bank. Webster offered the lowest annual debt service payment, which is a savings annually of about $120,000 to $130,000 over the best 15-year option. Our prepayment flexibility with Webster begins in 2029. It's a true prepayment flexibility. Other prepayment options included what's called a make-whole provision. So if we decided to take advantage of lower market rates, the debt holder would require us to actually make whole for their lost investment earnings through the remainder of the bond, thereby negating the benefit of actually refinancing the bond. So they say it's a prepayment provision, but it's really not. It's just an opportunity to pay money early, allows them to receive the same return on that money, gives us no benefit to going to the markets to seek a lower rate if interest rates continue to fall. It's a firm rate without a lock agreement. Lock agreements tend to have attributes of derivatives. Again, the conservative CPA in me, who spent a lot of time in the derivative world, is not a big fan of these instruments. They tend to favor the bank over the counterparty, which would be us. They would be the issuer of the derivative. And it also sometimes requires us to take on additional interest rate risk. This product that we're taking is a fixed rate throughout the term of the loan. This is probably not the easiest slide to read, but this is, so if you find something in this one, I'm going to be impressed. I'm sorry. So this compares all of the offers that we got and how we analyzed those various offers. So even though there were 6 banks, some of the banks made multiple offers on multiple structures, and we primarily zeroed in on the Webster 20-year for the reasons mentioned. In particular, I like the fact that we can begin an early payment analysis in 2020 and 2029 at a 2% premium. That slides to a 1% premium in 2031, and at 2033, at 8 years into a 12-year term, our prepayment penalty goes away completely, and we would just pay off the par balance at that time if we chose to. So, sort of to help understand the analysis that we underwent, we did this for each of the loans. We're only presenting Webster because that's our final numbers and our final selection. We will have a level set payment of about $770,000 per year. We will receive $10 million that will allow us to buy the land, pay preliminary design costs, and pay for the cost of issuing the Series 2025 PFA bond. The closing date on that bond is expected to be, well, probably September 12th, not September 11th, but September 12th, 2025. That should give us adequate time to wrap up all of our requirements on a sprawl purchase. I believe that acquisition date is September 29th, when the 90-day period runs out. So that gives us an 18-day cushion for, heaven forbid, something goes wrong in the due diligence process, the funding process. I like at least a 1-week contingency between funding and closing. We get 18 days on this schedule right now. First principal and interest payments will not be due until September 1st, 2026, so it'll have no impact to budget in 2025. It's a level debt service, and the final principal payment, should we just run the life of the loan, would be in 2045. Next steps, because it is a revenue bond, after this IGA is adopted, the PFA has done its side. They've approved issuance of the bond. They've approved entering into the IGA. Once the city approves its side of the IGA, then we will immediately file petition and complaint to begin the bond validation process with Fulton County court system. And you'll see that that timeline runs from basically tomorrow through somewhere around September 8th, with an expected closing of September 11th or 12th. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Bill. City Clerk Nancy Long, are there any Roswell residents who would like to speak on this item?
Mayor, there are no speakers for this item.
Thank you so much. Does council have any questions or comments? Thank you so much. Do I hear a motion? Motion made by Councilmember Sells. Shall I read it? Just a second, let me get a, yes, would you make the motion, please, sir? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion for the approval of a resolution to approve the bond resolution of the City of Roswell Public Facilities Authority, the PFA, authorizing the issuance of a PFA Revenue Bond Series 2025, and to authorize the execution of an intergovernmental lease agreement between the City of Roswell and the Public Facilities Authority regarding the use of the Sproul property.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Alan Sells, for that motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Mortland. All in favor of item number 4, approval of the resolution as stated by Councilmember Sells, please do so by raising your hands. Thank you. Let the record show that that item number 4, approval of resolution for the bond resolution by Councilmember Sells, is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. City Clerk Nancy Long, would you please read the 5th item on the regular agenda?
Yes, Mayor, this is approval for the mayor or city administrator to sign a contract with GS Construction Incorporated for the Bullock Avenue Waterline Replacement Project for $460,000, 148, not to exceed the total budget of $506,162. This will be presented by Brian Watson, Director of Environmental Public Works.
Thank you, Nancy, so much. Welcome, Brian.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. The Bullock Avenue Waterline Replacement Project will consist of replacing approximately 1,900 linear feet of existing 6-inch asbestos concrete pipe that's along Bullock Avenue with 8-inch ductile iron pipe. This project will connect to the existing 12-inch line on Mimosa Boulevard and the existing 12-inch line on Marietta Highway, or Highway 120, to form a loop and increase fire flows at the Bullock Hall and Mimosa Hall historic homes. This project is part of the Water Utility Master Plan, and when completed, will actually account for the replacement of almost 10% of the city's remaining AC pipe in the system. The City of Roswell sent the scope of work to all of our pre-qualified water contractors on July 9th, 2025. We received 5 bids ranging from $460,148 to $718,750. The city recommends awarding the contract to GS Construction. They were found to be the lowest, most responsible, and responsive bidder. And with that, I'll take any questions from council.
Thank you, Brian Watson. Appreciate it as always, sir. City Clerk Nancy Long, are there any Roswell residents who would like to speak on this item?
There are no speakers for this item.
Thank you very much. Any council comments, thoughts, or questions? Councilmember Hills.
Director Watson, will you just clarify for those listening about the asbestos concrete pipe, that the asbestos is not the issue, why the pipe is being replaced?
Thank you, Councilmember Hills. Great question. So I can give you the long technical answer, but starting in the 30s, asbestos concrete pipe was very, very common to be put out into the system throughout the U.S. The asbestos concrete pipe is just old and aging. It is not a water quality hazard at all, and it's getting old and has passed its useful life. So we have a replacement program to just start getting replace it all.
Perfect. And did I also understand that it's really costly to have to repair those?
Extremely costly, yes.
So,
and if you start repairing it, then you actually do have to go into, because it's asbestos concrete pipe, there's a different type of repair process. So actually, we will be leaving this pipe in the ground and just filling it with flowable fill and putting a line right next to it. So saves us costs, and it's much better for us.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Waterline.
During committee, someone asked the question up here about the repaving of the road. Can you touch on that real quick, about it not being a patch job, it being a paved job after we're done here?
Yeah, so this project itself does not include a repaving component. But once the project is done, as well as the project that's going on at Mimosa Hall right now, once that project is completed, then transportation will come back and actually repave Bullock Avenue. So it's not part of this project, but it will occur mid-next year.
You guys going to ask any other questions like in reference to water flow or how it's helping Bullock or Mimosa or no? Okay. You guys going to leave it alone? Okay, very good. Is there a motion? Do I hear a motion? Councilmember Hills.
Yes. Motion to approve for this, the mayor and, for the mayor or city administrator to sign a contract with GS Construction Inc. for the Bullock Avenue Waterline Replacement Project for $460,148, not to exceed the total budget of $506,162.
Thank you, Pro Tem and Councilmember Hills. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Councilmember Johnson. Thank you very much. All understand the motion it had and seconded by Councilmember Johnson. All in favor, please do so by showing and raising your hands. You support this motion. Let the record show that the motion passes 6-0 and is unanimous. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Mr. Watson. City Clerk Nancy Long, would you please read the sixth item on the regular agenda?
Yes, Mayor. This is approval of a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a project intergovernmental agreement, scope of work number 2, related to the Hill Street mixed-use development entered into under the master services agreement with the Downtown Development Authority, presented by Darrell Connolly, Director of Economic Development.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Welcome, Darrell.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Tonight, I'm talking to you about a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a project intergovernmental scope of work with the DDA for the Hill Street mixed-use project. Just by way of background, back in January of 2025, the city and the Downtown Development Authority entered into a master services agreement with the DDA. This was to basically engage the DDA for various economic development projects. Later in February of 2025, we entered into the first scope of work under the Master Services Agreement for the Hill Street mixed-use project. And we later, a couple months afterwards, in May, we entered into the land exchange agreement, which you're all familiar with, for the Hill Street project. That basically is a framework for the formal due diligence process for the project. The land exchange agreement had a number of critical dates in it. We have already put together project documents, first drafts of the project documents. The DDA went through a selection process for a townhome builder that Jeff talked about. They've also selected a construction manager at risk, or a project GC, for the parking deck. We're now at the point where we need to sign a project intergovernmental agreement. I'll go into exactly what that is. That needs to be done by the 15th of August. Later on in the schedule, we have the closing date of October 15th with a project commencement at the end of the year. The request for council tonight is approval of a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a project intergovernmental agreement scope of work number 2. It's a long name, related to the Hill Street mixed-use project entered into under the Master Services Agreement with the DDA. The major terms of this agreement: city is essentially going to be transferring property to the DDA in conformance with the land exchange agreement. We will have the opportunity to buy it back for $10 if there's a default by the developer and the project is not built. The DDA, since the land is going to be transferred to them, they're going to give the city all the ground lease payments with the exception of $15,000, which would be an administrative fee that the DDA would receive with a 3% escalator. The city would, since we're collecting the majority of that revenue, would provide the legal support for the project and also the accounting So we would figure out, if there's any rent escalations, tax escalations, remittance, we would be handling all of that in-house with the city. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Good stuff. No, good stuff, Daryl. Thank you very much. Appreciate that presentation. Let me ask City Clerk Nancy Long, are there any Roswell residents who would like to speak on this item?
There are no speakers for this item.
Thank you so much. Does council have any comments or questions for Daryl or period? Councilmember Johnson.
Daryl, in our 3 and 3 today, Al and I asked you a couple questions, and I want to steal his thunder so he doesn't talk for 17 more hours.
I got some more.
Oh, gosh. There was another deal in our city's history with the DDA, the West Alley project. When was the West Alley project approved?
West Alley was approved back in 2017, so about...
And when's the expected start of construction?
We don't have a start date there.
Okay,
So
and when did we sign the letter of intent for Hill Street? Help my memory.
December 2024.
When's our expected, construction start?
Construction are end of 2025, so...
So just to compare, previous elected officials.
It's okay, just not to dispute that. Let's say it's March of 2026. Fairness, actual construction, there'll be some cool stuff going up, but the actual dirt in the ground, March 2026, is that fair?
That's fair, yes.
And then the West Alley, West Gateway project, how was the financing for that? Did that, from the taxpayer's perspective, was it a money neutral, money lost, money positive?
So that particular transaction, the developer was given a 20-year, 100% tax abatement. So no taxes coming to the city for 20 years.
And then how is that different versus the Hill Street project? How much money are we, is there no taxes coming to the city for 20 years of Hill Street? Or?
So we've structured the deal so that on the residential components, so the multifamily and the townhomes, there would be 100% taxes. They would pay their taxes. On the commercial component, there's a phase-in of taxes over a period of 10 years, starting at 50%.
And help me, Daryl, because I'm just the sidewalk guy and a lowly anesthetist, healthcare worker, and MASH's not my easiest thing to do, unless it's a little syringe, big syringe, little syringe. So, the city's making money on this deal, correct? Like hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars a year, and as you said earlier, Mr. Mayor, maybe $66 million over 99 years.
$66 million is bad math, because it's actually much greater because it costs time and money and escalators. But just for fun, just on the ground lease alone.
66 versus a 20-year tax abatement.
Yes.
So, I guess this previous mayor and councils maybe they had a point.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Sells?
If you don't mind, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I want to point out that this scope of work approach, common to SEER, what we're doing specifically with the RDA and the DDA. I'd like to talk just a little bit about that, Daryl, because that's important. It's not simply that we are giving the project over to them. This is a slice of the project. This is a specific step, and we're providing all of their infrastructure, legal, finance, all that kind of stuff, and having them focus on that which they are uniquely qualified to do. Talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Sure. So the city has an economic development strategy. So we have specific requests of the DDA. DDA is working in partnership with us. So we will enter into scopes of work with them, asking them to do certain things under those scopes of work to further the economic development strategy.
And that helps us keep the DDA and the city and the RDA aligned with the strategy for economic development that's so brilliantly led by you and SEER.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Councilmember Sells. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions from council? There's a lot there. I know it's late. Probably you guys don't want to unpack anymore. Daryl, thank you very much. Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion, Mayor, if I may, to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a project intergovernmental agreement scope of work number 2 related to the Hill Street mixed-use development entered into under the Master Services Agreement with the Downtown Development Authority.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Sells. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded from Councilmember Johnson. All in favor of approval of this current motion, please do so by raising your hands. Let the record show that the vote is 6-0 and is unanimous, and the motion passes. Thank you very much, Darrell Conley, and thank you very much, council. All right, City Clerk Nancy Long, would you please read the last item on the regular agenda?
Yes, this is approval of a text and map amendment to the Unified Development Code for the Hill Street overlay. This would be the second reading. However, staff has requested this item be deferred to the August 25th Mayor and Council meeting.
All right, only thing is, guys, we got to get squared away on this. We got to knuckle down and get it done, all right? Like, this is, we'll keep deferring this. Let's get it done. A motion to defer, do I hear one? Motion by Councilmember Christine Hall, seconded by Councilmember Beeson. All in favor of deferring this particular item, please raise your hands. Let the record show that the item is deferred. Thank you very much. It looks like to August 25th. Very good. Thank you very much. All right. Last on the agenda is City Attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no recommendation for closure.
Thank you very much, David. All right, being that there are no other items, this Mayor and Council meeting of Monday, August 11th, 2025 is adjourned. Thank you so much for being here. God bless.
Trisha.